Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics. First, the highlights. President Bola Tinubu welcomes presidential election petition court verdict, affirming his victory at the February 25 poll. Labour Party and People's Democratic Party reject presidential tribunal verdict, says judgment against facts, evidence and does not reflect the law. Plus, state governments mark 100 days in office with more promises to fulfilling their campaign promises. Warm welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos, and after many hours, Nigerians now know the decision of the Presidential Election Petition Court, which upheld the election of President Bola Tinubu in the February 25th, 2023 election. After examining the petitions and defense of the parties, a five-man panel led by Justice Haruna Samani ruled that Mr. Tinubu is returned as duly elected President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The tribunal said the petitions filed by the Allied People's Movement, Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and Peter Obi of the Labour Party, challenging Mr. Tinubu's victory, were all devoid of merit. In the meantime, supporters of some political parties had gathered in different parts of the Federal Capital Territory as the court gave its judgment. Our crew monitored activities outside the courtroom and reported some heavy security presence to maintain the peace and avert any breakdown of law and order. And as at that time, that's before the judgment, all the supporters were hopeful for a favourable ruling.
The road linking the presidential villa to the appeal court, venue of the 2023 presidential election petition court, is cordoned off by security officials. A few meters from the security barrier, dozens of supporters of President Bola Tinubu converge, singing and dancing in anticipation of what they believe will be a favorable judgment.
We don't believe in failure because Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not a failure right from his childhood, and we believe that he's going to win the election tribunal.
Nigerians have already reflected their wishes, and it's acceptable to us, and Asiwaju is doing his best. So we're not expecting anything different, to be honest. And the judiciary, they know this because the facts speak for themselves.
Within the same area is another group supporting the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, who are also expecting victory for their candidate.
Any judgment released by the Court of Appeal to the Nigerian people that does not disqualify Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu as president-elect, we are rejecting it. The outcome of the judgment should reflect the will of the people, because any attempt to subvert the will of people today must be met with stiff resistance from Nigerian youth.
Supporters of the All Progressives Congress are going beyond the judgment to mark the president's 100 days in office.
We are also celebrating 100 days in office of the president, who has begun to put Nigeria on the path of greatness. We want to beg Nigerians to please be patient. The temporary pain will lead to everlasting and eternal glory by the grace of the Almighty.
It's carnival-like outside the court premises. Groups occupy the streets, all waiting to hear the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court. While the expectations are high from supporters of the various parties to the petitions, some amongst them advise supporters and their principals to show sportsmanship irrespective of how the judgment turns out.
However it goes, whoever wins should celebrate in a very modest way, and whoever feels that the judgment doesn't go their side should also manage the situation, prepare for the next 4 years to aspire again.
We should have that spirit of statesmanship, just like what Jonathan did in 2015 to former President Buhari. By accepting the defeat, let us learn to accept defeat. We have already embraced liberal democracy in this country. And we must allow that liberal democracy to thrive in Nigeria.
In the last 3 months, many Nigerians have waited with anticipation to see what the final outcome of the Election Petition Tribunal would be, as the parties that are not satisfied with the judgment will still have the opportunity to plead their case before the Supreme Court.
Well, following months of legal fireworks, the Presidential Election Petition Court affirmed the return of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the duly elected president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Here's a timeline of all the petitions and activities that brought us to this very moment. It started when hearing began, May the 8th. The court heard the petitions of the AA, APP, Labour Party. AA dropped the petition thereafter. The next day, pre-hearing petitions of the APM and also the PDP filing their case at the tribunal. May the 10th, the APP withdrew its case against President Tinubu. The 11th, the court adjourned hearing on the question of live broadcast for the cases of the Presidential Election Petition Court. May 17th, we remember the mild drama that ensued between two groups of the Labour Party at the tribunal. And May the 22nd, the tribunal dismissed the application for live broadcast. Throughout May as well, the month of May, the tribunal consolidated some petitions of political parties like the AP, the Labour Party, and the PDP. They tendered more evidence also May the 31st. In the month of June, we saw loads of evidence which were tendered against President Tinubu. One of course, the PDP's witnesses claiming that he was forced to sign the presidential election results in Kogi State. We also saw more of the Labour Party tendering more evidence in court throughout the month of June. Somewhere towards the middle of June, like the 14th, presidential candidate of the Labour Party tendered the Beaver Certificate of Compliance from 28 states and the FCT. June the 19th, the court adjourned APM's petition to June the 21st. And when that time came, the court asked for more evidence for other parties, INEC's non-compliance. The APM closed its case on that particular day as well. We have July the 4th, where INEC closed its defense in the PDP petition. The tribunal admitted President Tinubu's university credentials. There was lots more evidence that were brought before the tribunal. And July the 6th, President Tinubu and the APC closed their defense in the Labour Party PDP petitions. Of course, August the 4th, the tribunal reserved judgment, and just yesterday, September the 6th, it was Judgment Day. And just outside the shores of the country, in faraway India, where the president and his entourage, who had been following the court proceedings, could not hide their joy on the outcome of the case following the judgment. The president has assured Nigerians of his renewed focus on delivering his vision of a unified, peaceful and prosperous country. A statement by his presidential spokesman, Ajirin Gilali, says the president welcomed the judgment of the tribunal with an intense sense of responsibility and preparedness to serve all Nigerians, irrespective of diverse political persuasions, faith and tribal identities. On your mandate we shall stand. On your mandate we shall stand. On your mandate, on your mandate, on your mandate we shall stand. Well, it's more reactions, this time from the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. He's applauded the verdict of the Presidential Election Petition Court, affirming their victory. For him, the judgment is a reflection of the will of the people, and he says that he has retired the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, to a life on the farms. Well, elsewhere, the People's Democratic Party have rejected the verdict of the Presidential Election Tribunal Court upholding the victory of President Bola Tinubu. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, the party notes that having initially reviewed the judgment, it unequivocally rejects it in its entirety. In the words of the PDP, the judgment is against reason, against the facts and evidence presented in court, against the relevant electoral laws, guidelines and regulations, as well as the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Indeed, the judgment is generous in technicalities and very short in delivering substantial justice in the matter, end of quote. The PDP goes on to explain that as a law-abiding political party, it will have a comprehensive review of the judgment with its lawyers and decide on the next line of action within the ambit of the law. It calls on Nigerians to remain calm and alert as it continues to lead the charge to defend democracy and ensure that the will of the people, as expressed in the February 25th, 2023 presidential election, is respected and restored. It was also a similar reaction for the Labour Party, who rejected the outcome of the judgment by the Presidential Election Petition Court, saying justice was not served and it did not reflect the law and desire of the people. In a statement by the party's publicity secretary, the party says Nigerians were witnesses to the electoral robbery that took place on February the 25th, 2023, which was globally condemned, but the tribunal, in its wisdom, refused to accept the obvious. The statement further salutes the doggedness of its team of lawyers, but says that details of the party's position will be presented further after consultation with its lawyers, after it has received the certified true copy of the judgment. Joining us to talk more about the latest decision is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kayode Adeluola. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Were you surprised by the outcome of the court's decision?
Thank you for having me. Quite frankly, I was not surprised. And I'll tell you this. I had a discussion with some of my colleagues recently regarding the petitions and the expected outcome. And I said, you could actually do something like a spreadsheet, itemize what the parties are asking the court for, what the law requires of them to prove, what the papers, the pleadings the parties have presented are saying, and what the likely outcome would be. If you do this very honestly, and you have read the pleadings and the evidence presented by the parties, you really and truly will not be surprised by the outcome of the petitions as delivered by the justices of the Court of Appeal yesterday. And quite frankly, I must say that I saw the industry put in by the justices of the Court of Appeal. And so whether you agree with them or not, you cannot take away the fact that they dealt with the issues one by one, without omitting anything. And for me, I saw that the petitioners spent a lot more time seeking how to disqualify the winner of the election, that is the President Bola Tinubu, rather than seeing how to present before the court that their mandates had been stolen, using their own words. Now, if you believe that your mandate has been appropriated by somebody else, what we expect to see before the courts will be telling us the scores that you think should have been yours. In other words, rather than have 6 million, I should have had 7 million votes. And rather than give 8 million votes in the score sheet to the winner, he should have had only, say for the sake of argument, 5 million. And tell us where and when those votes were taken from you. For example, in the petition presented by Labour Party, I think it was in the paragraphs 62 and 65, they mentioned polling units where some votes should have been theirs and others shouldn't have been ascribed to the winner. I think they mentioned Rivers State and Benue State. And we're talking about 30,000 votes or so. But if you're contesting the result of an election, we gave you a differential of 2 million, you should with the greatest respect to the senior advocates who presented the case, be giving us figures to show that you shouldn't have had 6 million, you should have been talking about 8 million or what have you. That would have been easier to look at. But what we're talking about mostly were issues of disqualification.
Yes,
and
but
one of
Mr.
the issues of disqualification.
I just wanted to
Yes.
jump in there because some people have said perhaps it's rather difficult proving some of this electoral malfeasance with, the magnitude of evidence that is needed to be proven at the tribunal.
It is true. I remember that on one of the occasions I appeared on your channel, I said it would be a Herculean task. Herculean task it is, not impossibility. I would rather have a volume of figures, volume of polling units, saying that these are the figures we expect to have had in the polling units in Lagos, polling units in Benue, polling units in Anambra, polling units in Bayelsa, showing the figures. The justices would have looked at those figures. I have no doubt in my mind. Then if they wouldn't look at those figures, then people would have been able to say, but those figures were presented before you, why didn't you look at them? But they had no figures to look at. So it was a situation where you want the judgment to be in your favor, saying that you won the election. You can only win elections based upon figures. And if you don't have the figures before the justices, honestly, it will be very difficult to do anything for you. And besides that, we're talking about presentation. A lot of things that the justices complain about, pleadings, presentation of witnesses, statements of oath, were things that were, and with the greatest respect to my colleagues, very basic things, which unfortunately somehow or the other, they're allowed to slip through the cracks. If the justices were able to knock off about 20 of your paragraphs, which are the germane paragraphs, then what are you going to be left with? You had 13 witnesses, 10 were struck out. What are you going to be left with? So I think this opportunity of being on the website of the station to appeal to our colleagues to see the situation as one in which they have got to tell those who are listening to us that these are the errors that we have made here and there, and we shall see if we can correct them at the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, if we cannot, we're going to be looking forward to 2027. The Supreme Court is going to be waiting for them to come.
Yes, I was going to ask that, do you think that they should accept the Court of Appeal's decision or move on to the Supreme Court?
For the benefit of the progress of our jurisprudence, I think they should go to the Supreme Court, particularly on the point of the 25% of the Federal Capital Territory. We need to lay that issue to rest. And unless we have a decision of the Supreme Court, we'll all still keep guessing, was the Court of Appeal right or wrong? Once we have had the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, then we know that you don't need to have 25% or you must have 25%. But for that one in particular, I'd love to hear what the pronouncement of the justices of the Noble Logs or the Supreme Court would have to say regarding that.
How do you think this judgment will impact the political climate in the country? And this is, if you've been hearing some reactions from different quarters, I mean, for the political parties, you've heard the Labour Party say this is quite against the law, rather does not reflect the law. For the PDP, they're saying it's against facts, and evidence. But in terms of, what other Nigerians are thinking about yesterday's judgment?
Let's be frank. It's going to be very dependent on what we as lawyers say to those who are not lawyers. I don't know how many non-lawyers sat from 9 o'clock till 10 p.m. yesterday listening to this judgment, which was delivered live on stream. The truth is, a lot of us need to manage the expectations of those who are not lawyers and do not tell them, oh, the judgment was against the weight of the evidence or was bad. I've heard some people say, for example, that, oh, we need to be very careful, otherwise people will seek justice in other ways. No, we shouldn't do that. They have the opportunity of going to the Supreme Court. We will all wait and see how the grounds of appeal will be crafted and seeing what the Supreme Court will have to say. And this will all end in another 60 days. I'm anxious to see the reaction of the Supreme Court to some of the germane issues. But then again, if the Supreme Court has taken decisions, for example, in the issue about nomination of legislators, the vice president. We shouldn't take that matter to them again. Otherwise, it would be making a mockery of our judiciary. That matter had been decided on the 26th of May, as recent as the 26th of May, but my colleagues still pursue the matter before the Court of Appeal. In some jurisdictions, it would earn you some reprimand. It would. So for us, I think we can
fines as well.
Well, I really do not know about the fine. I heard a lot of people saying about the fine, but I listened to the judgment at the very end. I only heard them say the parties should bear the cost. I don't recall hearing that they said there was going to be any fine.
All right. We'd like to thank you, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kayode Adedola. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll move on to other stories. Congratulatory messages coming in from the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. He's congratulated President Bola Tinubu, he says, on the well-deserved victory at the Presidential Election Petition Court, which delivered its verdict in the favor of the All Progressives Congress and the APC. The president in Abuja. The governor of Lagos State said that the president and the APC worked very hard for the victory, noting that the Election Petition Court's decision is an affirmation of the will of over 8 million Nigerians who found out to cast their ballot. For the governor of Ogun State, while congratulating the president and vice president, he called the verdict an affirmation of the trust reposed in the president by Nigerians. Over the North Central region, the Niger State Governor, Umaru Bago, said that it is not only a victory for the APC, but for democracy in Nigeria and other African nations. He, however, appealed to the president and vice president to be magnanimous in victory and remain focused on actualizing the renewed hope agenda of the present administration. And to other stories, this time we're in Katsina State, where the Katsina State Governor, Diko Rada, has revealed that his administration has recruited at least 1,500 community watch officers drawn from the 8 frontline local government areas of the state. This, he said, is part of measures to empower residents to defend themselves against terrorist attacks. Mr. Rada was speaking during a media chat held at the government house as part of activities to mark his 100 days in office. He further announced that his administration has also provided support to victims of banditry by providing free medical care and monies transferred to support the livelihood of victims. And Governor Dauda Lawal has flagged off the distribution of palliatives in Zamfara State, reiterating that the food distribution is meant for all Zamfara citizens, regardless of their political affiliation. At the flag-off ceremony in Gusau, the state capital, the governor tasked the committee responsible for distributing the palliatives to be fair and just. The governor stressed that as a stopgap measure, Zamfara State is rolling out support initiatives aimed at alleviating the hardships faced by the people due to the removal of fuel subsidy.
Government at all levels is liberating on the opportunity to provide certain remedies as a result of the removal of the oil subsidy. As a top-gap measure, Zamfara State, along with other states of the Federation, is rolling out support initiatives which is aimed at alleviating the hardship faced by the people. The second batch of the federal government food palliative distribution for the remaining 18 local government areas will commence as soon as the delivery is received. The distribution of these items or palliatives is just one of the series of the steps being taken to alleviate people's hardship and drive our state forward by creating new opportunities that can be harnessed by our people.
And to other political stories, the National and State Assembly Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Minna High Court Complex has upheld the election of Senator Sani Musa of the All Progressives Congress. Senator Sani was taken to the tribunal by senior advocate Ibrahim Isiaku of the People's Democratic Party, challenging the election of the second respondent at the February 25th, 2023 National Assembly election of Niger East Senatorial District. The petitioner in his petition claimed that the election was marred with unprecedented irregularities over voting, denial of eligible voters to cast their votes in 7 out of the remaining local governments that make up the senatorial district. In a total of 37 exhibits, 2 witnesses, as well as 3 subpoenaed witnesses, and over 4 hours of judgment delivered by Justice Mohammed Rashid, a member of a 3-man panel. After painstakingly reviewing the petition, it averred the petitioner failed in totality to prove all the allegations raised before the tribunal. Elsewhere, the National Assembly Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Umuahia also declared the All Progressives Congress candidate Nkiruka Onyeji-Ocha as the winner. The declaration made by Justice Adeyinka Aderigbe at the Agui-Ironsi Conference Hall posited that the first petitioner scored the highest score in the said election and hinted that the certificate of return be removed from Oga. Councils to the APC welcomed the development, while counsel to the Labour Party admit that they will appeal the judgment. And the senator representing Kogi Central in the upper legislative chamber, Abubakar Ohere, says he received the judgment nullifying his election with great shock and has vowed to appeal the verdict. Speaking through a statement, Senator Ohere explains that he is waiting for his team of lawyers to give him details of the judgment, urging his supporters to be peaceful. On Wednesday, the Kogi State Election Petition Tribunal, sitting in Lokoja, declared Mrs. Natasha Akpoti-Udwanga as winner of the February 2023 Kogi Central Senatorial election, nullifying the victory of Senator Abubakar Ohere. And that's Lunchtime Politics at this time. You've been served. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Bye for now.